हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय चैनल द स्टोरीस्केप एंड फाइनली मैंने ये बुक ख़त्म कर दी, ग्रेटेस्ट वर्क्स ऑफ एडगर एलन पो। एज यू कैन सी इसका कवर बहुत ही अच्छा है। आई हैड नेवर एवर रेड हिज वर्क, however you do hear his name a lot, right? So that is why when I saw it I was like, okay, I've heard of this name, let's try this out. So that is why I picked it up and finally मैंने इसको ख़त्म कर दिया। मुझे बहुत टाइम लगा इसको ख़त्म करने में, but yes, I did it. About the author portion is very well detailed. हमें पता चलता है that he was born in Boston. By the age of 2 he was orphaned. He was taken in by John Allen and उसी से उनके नाम में Allen का नाम भी आता है. Later on he joins army, but because he used to be absent he was court-martialed. Later on he married Virginia and जिनकी death के बाद he was very depressed and he died a lonely death. This book consists of 25 of his poetries and 18 of his tales, along with some criticisms, essays, and letters that he wrote. The mesmerizing and interesting illustrations in this book have been done by Arthur Rackham. I will write the index of the poetry and the tales in the description so you can check it out. Now, for those who do not know, Edgar Allan Poe is a Gothic writer. And जिनको Gothic genre का नहीं पता है, Gothic genre basically contains elements of fear, horror, your sadness, gloominess, nocturnal landscapes, death, and all of this you get in this book, and I really loved it because of that. मुझे genuinely नहीं पता था कि he is a Gothic writer when I went into this. So I will discuss with you the 7 poems that I really loved and the 7 tales that I really loved, and overall मुझे क्या चीज़ समझ आई है इनके वर्क से. So without any delay, let's begin with it. The first poem that I really liked was Spirits of the Dead, जिसका ओरिजिनल नाम था Visits of the Dead. एंड इसमें बताया गया कि हाउ यू आर इन द सिमेट्री एंड दो वी माइट से कि आई एम अलोन इन माई रियलिटी, बट व्हेन यू डाई यू वोंट बी अलोन एट ऑल. एंड कई बार होता है कि हम लोग बोलते हैं यार मैं अभी भी अकेला हूँ, मरने के बाद भी अकेला रहूँगा, लेकिन जो पोएम है वो अलग ही टेक लेती है. वो कहती है कि नहीं, जब आप मर जाओगे उसके बाद यू विल नॉट बी अलोन बिकॉज यू विल बी सराउंडेड बाय स्पिरिट्स ऑफ द डेड. Another take that this poem takes is that it does not romanticize death at all. It in fact criticizes कि humans ने death को कुछ ज़्यादा ही romanticize कर दिया है. तो मेरे हिसाब से ये poem जो है न्यूट्रलाइज करने की कोशिश करती है, ना वो उसको एकदम डरावना दिखा रही है और ना ही वो उसको बहुत अच्छा दिखा रही है. On the other hand, it's trying to neutralize death, which is a new take according to me. The second poem that I really liked was Lenore. Lenore according to me was the best of the poems जो मैंने 7 सेलेक्ट करी, उनमें से बेस्ट Lenore है. Lenore जो पोएम है वो एक डायलॉग फॉर्म में लिखी गई है. इट इज़ बिटवीन द मोर्नर एंड द फियोन्से ऑफ लेनोर. बेसिकली जो लेनोर है मेन कैरेक्टर जो है, शी इज़ नो मोर, एंड उनके फ्यूनरल के टाइम पे जो मोर्नर्स हैं वो गाय देवेर उनके फियोन्से से कह रहे हैं कि भाई तुम ज़्यादा उदास हो नहीं, तुम इतने उदास क्यों नहीं हो रहे हो, वाई आरंट यू मोर्निंग, वाई आरंट यू डिप्रेस्ड, बिकॉज शी इज़ नो मोर, यू वर सपोज टू गेट मैरिड टू हर बट नाउ नथिंग इज़ गोना हैपन दैट वे, डिडंट यू लव हर. वहीं पे जो गाय देवेर है वो कह रहे हैं कि भाई तुम क्यों इतने ज़्यादा इमोशनल हो रहे हो, मेरे को डिप्रेशन में नहीं जाना है भाई, आई हैव फुल फेथ दैट आई विल मीट हर इन हेवन, व्हेन आई डाई आई विल मीट हर, एंड इट्स ओके दैट आई कुडंट मैरी हर, बट ठीक है मिल जाएंगे बाद में. ही इज़ वेरी होपफुल आई मस्ट से. वहीं पे वो बोल रहे कि यू गाइज आर टेलिंग मी हाउ टू मोर्न फॉर द लॉस, वेयर इन जब वो अलाइव थी तुम्हें उससे कोई मतलब नहीं था, यू डिडंट इवन लाइक हर, एंड नाउ यू आर प्रिटेंडिंग एज इफ यू वर द क्लोजेस्ट टू हर. This very fact makes this poem very interesting because this is what happens even in reality. लोगों के देखो ग्रीव करने के तरीके अलग अलग होते हैं. कुछ लोग बहुत सालों तक उभर नहीं पाते हैं, वहीं पे कुछ लोग होते हैं जो बहुत जल्दी कम बैक कर लेते हैं. एंड जो सोसाइटी है ये कम बैक करने वालों को जीने नहीं देती, बिकॉज अकॉर्डिंग टू देम इट्स लाइक अरे अभी तो कोई मरा था घर में, हाउ कैन दे बी सो नॉर्मल और सो हैप्पी. जबकि एज अ ह्यूमन बींग वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड कि ग्रीविंग प्रोसेसेस कैन बी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम ईच एंड एवरी पर्सन. ये जो पोएम है काफ़ी हद तक रिफ्लेक्ट करती है हमारी एक्चुअल सोसाइटी को. दैट इज़ वाई दिस वॉज माई फेवरेट पोएम. The next poem that I really liked was The City in the Sea. Its original name was The Doom City. It was later also changed to The City of Sin. It talks about how death has reared itself a throne. The poem takes a reader through Death City. The place is compared to a more terrible version of hell in the last lines. It also says कि जो ये city है, it's a place that even hell would worship. The Gothic description in the poem definitely provides a great imagery of the city. The next poem that caught my attention was The Raven. In this story, there is a man who lives alone, and during a stormy night, he hears a sound, and when he goes out and check, he finds a raven. This raven only knows to say one word, which is nevermore, and this one word has a great significance. As we move ahead in this poem, we get to know that this person has lost someone very dear to him, and he's going through an emotional war, trying to fight and gain control over his grief and loss. The poem highlights that all wars need not be physical. This person is going through loss and grief and he's trying to overcome it in some way or the other, and थोड़ा सा peace पाने के चक्कर में he's going to ask Raven a lot of questions, all the wrong questions mind you, जिसके सबके आंसर उसको nevermore में ही मिलने वाले हैं. And due to asking wrong questions, he falls into a loop of belief that he will always be in the shadow of death and sorrow and he will not gain any happiness. His hope shatters. Another interesting fact is कि इस poem में जिस person को इस आदमी ने खोया है उसका नाम भी Lenore ही है. Now, the Raven is different from Lenore. It is not the same Lenore. दोनों में same Lenore की बात नहीं की गई है. Lenore वाली जो poem थी, it's more positive because उसमें जो fiancé है, he has hope कि he will meet his lover in heaven. Wherein the Raven के अंदर जो person है, he has lost all his hope that he will ever meet his Lenore and he's in the cycle of depression. The next poem is Eulalie, which is believed to have been written for Virginia by Edgar Allan Poe, and it's a very beautiful description. Basically, the narrator, who was living a sad life, was in depression, overcame all of that, came out of it, and is happy now because of the woman in his life. And he has described that lady so beautifully, her girls and everything. It's kind of a description that every girl wants. Kash mere liye bhi ek ladka aisa kuch likhta yaar. Next is a beautiful poem called A Dream Within a Dream. It talks about how this life is an illusion and reality doesn't exist. Our existence is a mere abstraction. Words बहुत ही simple हैं and यही simplicity की वजह से इसकी एक अलग ही beauty निकल कर आती है. कहीं ना कहीं ये चीज़ भी दर्शाता है कि कई बार होता है कि हम अपना एक ड्रीम फॉलो करने के चक्कर में ना हम लाइफ को जीना ही छोड़ देते हैं एंड हम उस ड्रीम को पाने के उस साइकिल में ही अटक के रह जाते हैं. Last is a beautiful poem called For Annie. It was written for Nancy Haywood, or you can also say Nancy Richmond, जिन्होंने बाद में अपना नाम Annie चेंज करा था. ये पोएम पो ने उनके लिए इसलिए लिखी थी because in his later periods after Virginia when he was depressed, Annie ने उनका ध्यान रखा and helped him get out of this depression. He shared a close relationship with her, you can say. And the reason why I love this poem is because I like the fact that Poe actually cherished the people who stood with him when his time was tough. The first story is Ligeia. It merges gothic element with love story in a very beautiful manner. The story is named after the prominent character, and ये जो prominent character है Ligeia, ये हमारे narrator की first wife है. Even though she has died, that she is no more, her memory remains in the narrator's mind. Even though the narrator has remarried, we see how Ligeia remains afresh in his mind and his soul. इसकी जो ending है वो काफ़ी interesting है, and we also get to see her dark return. And the next very much talked about tale is the fall of the house of Usher, and obviously in today's time सबने सुना होगा because Netflix पे series भी आ गई है. And basically talks about how the narrator visits his friend whose sister is very ill. And the next is a series of some really creepy incidents. Next is the story The Pit and the Pendulum, and mark it, this was my favorite story. In this, there was a prisoner who was laying down and there was an axe oscillating just above him and it was slowly coming down. So the death anxiety that character feels, you also feel the same way while you're reading it and you're like, is he gonna die? What's gonna happen next? How is he gonna come out of this? Or what is he gonna do? So वो जो थ्रिल है ना कि आगे क्या होने वाला है वो काफ़ी बना रहता है अच्छी तरीके से. सो नो मैटर व्हाट हैपन्स, आई पर्सनली बिलीव दैट यू गाइस शुड गिव दिस अ ट्राई. लाइक ऑनलाइन ही पढ़ लो यार अगर ज़रूरत पड़े तो. द नेक्स्ट स्टोरी इज़ द टेल हार्ट. Now just imagine a person who is trying to convince one's own sanity while describing something totally insane. इसमें जो कैरेक्टर है उसको ओवर एक्यूटनेस ऑफ सेंसेस है. बेसिकली इसके जो सेंसेस है वो हाइपर सेंसिटिव है जिसकी वजह से ही फेसेस अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स. द वे द स्टोरी प्रोसीड्स फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग एंड हाउ इट मूव्स अहेड ग्रेजुअली एंड एंड में जिस तरीके से ये रैप अप होती है, इट्स वेरी वेल रिटन. The next dark story is called The Black Cat, or as I would like to call it, The Revenge of the Black Cat. Now in this, the narrator used to be a good guy, but due to alcoholism, he becomes insane. Now, again over here we see the theme of insanity versus sanity. He does some really dark stuff like cutting out the eye of the cat. Now what follows next is how the cat takes its revenge. Next is a story called The Oval Portrait. Now in this, the narrator takes shelter in an abandoned chateau, and over there he's captivated by a painting of a lady. Now he takes the readers through the history of the painting. The story is about art, obsession, and an artist's obsession. Now while you're reading it, somewhere down the line you will predict what the ending is going to be, but still, the story keeps you engaged and the ending doesn't disappoint you. I hope I never get obsessed like that. The last story is The Cask of Amontillado. And honestly, जब ये story start होती थी, half of the time, like I was like, okay, let's see how it goes. I was not that sure how it's gonna go. Even after seeing this illustration, I don't know why, I was a little confused. Okay, what's gonna happen? So when things really happen, I was like, wait, is this really happening? You see death, insanity, obsession, revenge, all of the 4 elements in this story, and it was actually nice. I thought I might not like it, but ultimately the way it went, it was really good. Overall, this is a well curated collection of Edgar Allan Poe's work. I would definitely recommend it to those people who are into Gothic literature or want to try out Gothic literature. However, mind you, the language that is used in his work is not as simple as what is used in today's time, so you can also consider it as a way of expanding your vocabulary. The recurring themes in his work, the death of women, the amount of women that die in his work is a lot, and grief, madness, revival of death, all of this has been assumed to come from his personal life because he saw his family like dwindle very early. The death of his mother was very emotional for him. The death of his wife was very emotional for him. So all of that grief and all he's been through in life, in reality, is what affects his work, is what is believed in literature. The essays and criticisms are sharp. The letters provide the reader a look into the personality of Edgar Allan Poe. Now, apart from all of this, what makes his work fabulous is that how Poe has explored the psychological depths of humankind by means of characters. And not to mention that the themes that emerge, the Gothic themes that emerge in his work, is something that provides a glimpse into the writer's brilliant and dark mind. So I hope if you also read some of the poems or some of the tales or this whole book in general, I hope you enjoy it as well as much as I did. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, keep reading and keep dreaming.